Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Health Code podcast. Now, we've got an amazing guest coming up for you in a few minutes, but before we dive into that, as I said at the end of last week's episode, the first part here, we're going to talk about nutrition, because nutrition is really where it all starts. It's the principle of having a lovely car and putting vegetable oil in it rather than petrol. Well, it might look great, or it might have all this potential, but it's not going to perform very well unless you put the right fuel into it. Our bodies are no different. Our bodies are exactly the same. What you put in directly relates to what you get out. You put really good stuff in, invariably, unless you're very unlucky, you're going to get good stuff out. You put bad stuff in, you're going to get bad stuff out in the sense of how you feel, in the sense of health problems, in the sense of probably your aesthetic appearance. So, we live in a world now where because of social media, because of clickbait, because of people trying to get attention, there is extremes when it comes to pretty much every single subject. And nutrition and diet and lifestyle when it comes to what you eat, honestly, that is one of the most polarized and extreme things you can even comprehend and think of the competition. You've got people on one end of the spectrum who say all you need is red meat, you don't need to eat anything else. You've got people on the other end of the spectrum that say all you need to eat is a plant-based diet and you don't need anything else. Now, I don't subscribe to the concept, based on the research I've done, that there is one diet that suits every man, woman and child. I don't believe that's the fact. That's the truth. I believe there probably is as many diets and as many right diets out there as there is people on this earth. I think so many things contribute, so many factors contribute to what makes a good diet for you. Where you're born in the world, your genetics, your skin color, the culture, the temperature of the place that you live or are born in, the climate, the lifestyle, so many different things, so many different factors down to your genetics, as many different factors as you want to name. Hence why you've got people in certain parts of the world that are thriving, living a very plant-based, low-protein diet, namely the blue zones down in Sardinia, where they have a very fresh diet of seafood, fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, healthy fats like olive oil, and so on. And then you've got this brand new high-protein, high-fat, keto, carnivore, paleo type diets that are supposedly the pinnacle, and there's lots of people doing them that are thriving. There's lots of people that have a vegan diet that seem to be thriving. So I don't believe there's one diet that fits all, but I do believe that there is one key component that you can apply to any diet, whichever one you are doing, which is that you want the freshest and you want the highest quality ingredients that you can possibly get. If you're on a plant-based diet and you're eating tons of synthetic, fake meats, not natural products based on chemical concoctions, namely corn and lots of the vegetarian and vegan sausages and meat replacements and so on, I don't believe that's healthy. If you're eating fresh fruits and fresh vegetables from your local area, I absolutely believe that can be a healthy diet. Similar goes to the other end of the spectrum with carnivore. If you're eating very toxic, low-quality meat that's been pumped full of growth hormones and antibiotics and bovine and so on, pasteurized dairy, then I don't believe that's good. If you're eating fresh, grass-fed meats, pasture-raised eggs, high-quality dairy, raw milks and so on, then I think, again, there's a lot of health benefits to that. I've tried pretty much every diet, namely because I'm interested in how my body responded to different diets, and I'm also always on the lookout to feel better, to feel stronger, fitter, leaner, and more vibrant. So therefore, I've still not reached the point where I think I found the perfect diet for myself. I think I'm always trying to evolve and tweak that. Unfortunately, that's not the case for most people. Most people settle into a certain diet, and as we said in last week's episode, they've accepted a life where 6 out of 10 is good enough. They might feel achy, they might feel tired, but they just kind of get on with it. They accept that's how it is, rather than constantly trying to evolve and improve and feel better. For me, that's our duty. Our duty is that every single one of us have a purpose, we have a passion, we have a gift to bring to the world, and I think it's our life's mission to figure out what that is and to bring it to the world. That's our responsibility in this human family. And I think it should be every person's individual responsibility to have themselves feeling the most vibrant, best version of themselves, whatever that looks like to you. So what I want to share with you today is something that I think is incredibly useful to figuring out where you might be going wrong with your diet, figuring out what foods tend to upset you, and figuring out what foods make you feel good, make you feel thriving, whether that's cognitively or physically in terms of your energy, your sleep, your presence in the room. So people talk about food diaries. They talk about keeping tabs on what you eat. They use different apps, MyFitnessPal, My Net Diary, and others to track their calories, their breakdowns of proteins, fats, and carbohydrates, and things like that. Now, for me, that's kind of stage 2. Step 1 is even more simple than that. What I would urge everybody to do, if you're struggling with your diet where you don't feel great, maybe you're struggling with your weight, maybe you feel very tired and lethargic after eating, maybe you're having issues with digestion where you feel full for hours and then all of a sudden you feel very, very hungry, uncomfortably so, when you feel sluggish when you get up in the morning, all of those are signs that your body's not getting something that it needs, or it's getting too much of something that it doesn't want. So what I would suggest we do firstly, buy yourself a notebook, really simple, smallest one you can get, a little pocket notebook, and put down in there your meals for the day. So say you're doing breakfast, lunch and dinner, as most people would do. What I want you to do is I want you to write the ingredients that were in that food. So hypothetically, to keep it really simple, let's say you had beans on toast. You write down that you had beans, you write down that you had toast, and you ideally, if you want to go really into it, you put the brand of whatever it is that you've had. And then I want you to write down how you felt 10 minutes after eating your meal, and I want you to write down how you felt an hour after having your meal. Keep it as simple as you want. Smiley face if you felt good, grumpy face if you didn't, something in the middle if you felt okay. If you want to keep it as basic as that, do that. Then the same for your next meal, the same for your next meal. And then the next day, the start of day 2 on this, I want you to put how you felt at the start of the day. Did you wake up feeling energized? Did you wake up feeling tired? How did you sleep? And then do the same for day 2 with all your meals. Same for day 3, each morning, the same principle. How did you sleep? How did you feel when you woke up? Do that for 7 days. And after 7 days, I want you to take a blank sheet of paper and I want you to look at all the foods that you have described, that you have eaten, and see if there's any themes. Right, beans on toast, to keep it simple. I had beans on toast 3 times last week, and each time afterwards, within 10 minutes and within an hour, felt bloated, felt quite lethargic. Okay, 3 times I had that, I felt that way. So you've got 2 elements to that. It could be toast, so it could be bread, or it could be beans. I also want you to describe any foods that you ate that you felt great afterwards. And that's quite common. Certain foods will make you feel high energy. Maybe you did a workout after a certain meal, after your lunch, and you felt really strong. You felt really fit when you did that. You felt really vibrant. Maybe you felt great when you went to bed after your dinner. And I want you to look at all those foods that you have had that made you feel good and write those down as well. And the really simple equation then is you have more of the ones that made you feel good and you have less of the ones that didn't. And you start by doing this to understand exactly what food your body doesn't want, exactly how certain foods make you feel. And it's about being more present with your body. Now, people will argue and say that sounds very hippie. It's not. You live inside your body. You're in here at all times with your own emotions, your own thoughts, your own physical health when it comes to whether you feel tired, lethargic, achy. So isn't it a good idea to connect with it so that you're in tune and you can start to understand it? You can start to go, that doesn't sound quite right. To bring it back simply to the car concept, when you're driving your car, if your car starts making a rattling noise it wasn't making 5 miles ago, you're going to notice and you're going to be like, something's not right, something's changed. If all of a sudden it starts shuddering when it wasn't before, you're going to start to evaluate, well, what's causing that? Our bodies need to be treated in exactly the same way. If your body's starting to feel something that it wasn't yesterday, that's it sending you a message that something's out of balance. And the best way to try and understand how to bring it back into balance is to listen to it. And our food is so important. We have 3 meals or 2 meals a day. Every single day, every single time you open your mouth and put food into your body, you're making a decision whether you're doing something for the benefit of your health or for the detriment. Occasionally it'll be somewhere in the middle, but most of the time it's one or the other. And by listening to how our body feels after certain foods, good or bad, we can start to reconnect and start to really understand exactly what our body wants from our diet. That's step 1. Start doing that. Do that for a week. Based on the feedback you get from that first week, live your second week slightly differently and see if you feel different. And then just keep doing that until you get to a point you'll have a list of ingredients that your body responds very well to, and you'll have figured out exactly what it doesn't respond very well to, and you can start to limit those or completely cut those out of your diet. Very simple concept, but incredibly effective when it comes to looking at why you feel a certain way after eating, or why you may feel a certain way if you're not getting something from your diet that your body needs. Hope you found that helpful. I've been doing that. I still do that now, and I find it incredibly helpful. And I sometimes will go back and periodically review things that I've written about previously, things that I've tried or maybe not had a great response to. Maybe after a period of time, I might try it again to see if I feel the same, because there's so many things that go into a healthy diet. And ultimately, you've got to figure out what is healthy and beneficial for you. What works for you might not work for me, might not work for your partner, might not work for your kids. But you've got to figure out what works for you, because at the end of the day, it's your body, it's your health. So therefore, you need to put that at the top of your list of priorities, and everything and everyone around you will benefit if you're feeling the best version of yourself. So hopefully you give that a go. And I'd love to hear some feedback in the comments if any of you try that. And hopefully it does what it's intended to do and helps you improve your health. Thank you for watching this episode. If you want to tune into the rest of it, head over to Ickonic.com, where I'll be joined by holistic practitioner Catherine Edwards, and we're going to talk about a range of subjects, including the health of animals, the intuitive nature of animals, and how we can learn so much from them that will benefit our health. That's Ickonic.com for the full episode. I'll see you there.
From what I've learned, I have never, ever, ever, I couldn't tell you any calories at all. I've never looked at calories. I've never weighed food for myself or my animals. You know, it's pretty common sense. If I'm putting on weight and then I need to stop eating, it will change what I'm eating. If I'm losing weight, I might need to eat some more, change what I'm eating. And same with my animals. And with the way our bodies work, absolutely, we are still hardwired. Whatever you think about where humans came from and what our real history is, you know, most animals are opportunistic, and if something's put in front of them, they're sort of, okay, I need to take advantage of this resource now. For many reasons. It can be because they don't know where their next meal's coming from. It can be because they're in a climate where that food's not going to keep. It's going to go off. Different animals have different stomach acids and can cope with different levels of gone off food. For example, cats and dogs are very different on that. But also it's the nutrient density of the food. So if you're eating a species appropriate diet, and for humans, that can be a huge range of things and will change not only based on where you live in the world, but also the seasons and your own personal health status. You know, we all accept that pregnant women will have cravings and will be craving certain things because they're feeding for two. So I think in terms of why we overeat, part of it, I think, is that adaptation to we're still hardwired to take resources when we can. But part of it is because most of our food is so nutritionally depleted. And then you've also got the psychological aspect of whether you want to call it comfort eating, where a lot of people now use food as a displacement behavior, you know, as a stress reduction technique, you know, food, alcohol, cigarettes, porn, whatever it might be. So there's so many complications. But one thing I can honestly say is, you know, I've got 5 cats. They live out in nature. They've got access to hunt whenever they want. They will never overeat. I've never had a fat cat. The only time I've ever seen a fat cat is when they're kept inside and they're fed processed food. Yeah. Or they might even be fed good food inside, but they've not got the choice of it. They've only got the choice of what their human puts down for them. And you see that a lot in nature. So the more choice you give an animal, the less likely they are to have any food issues. Obviously, it's much more difficult for, say, dogs, that most dogs aren't capable now of going out and catching their own food. But again, when you start feeding them, for example, with my dogs are on a really good, best quality I can afford raw diet, and I mix it up quite a lot, they won't overeat. They don't overeat, but they will, all the junk food that we might have in our house, they've all got chemicals in that make them addictive to people. Everyone knows the Pringles story. So that applies to our animals as well. If you're feeding your dogs junk food, they can't recognize it in food the same way as they would eating a rabbit. You know, if a dog goes out, a dog would never go out and catch 10 rabbits at once and keep them there for later. They catch a rabbit, eat what they wanted of it, and leave the scraps for someone else to finish it. We need to make sure we've got time where we're not listening to a podcast, where we're not consuming content, we haven't got the TV or radio on in the background, because you cannot be taking in different things, two things at one time. That age-old saying, you can't be happy and sad at the same time. We have to learn to sit with ourselves, even if it's just for small periods of time. You don't need to do a full-blown meditation. We have to ground ourselves, and people think that's a biohacking tool. It's common sense. Most people live in synthetic buildings, built up buildings, surrounded by Wi-Fi and goodness knows what else. I promise you, if you just go and stand barefoot outside for 10 minutes, you'll get some answers to the questions you want. If you can't do that, if it's muddy, if it's cold, if it's prickly, just go and lean against a tree or sit against a tree for 10 minutes and see how you feel. And then be the type of friend that's giving good, honest, heartfelt advice. If your friend's struggling with your health, don't say, oh, darling, you look beautiful, you look everything. If they're not happy, saying, great, what can I do to support you through that? Would it help if when we go out, we don't go to a pub, we go for a walk instead and take a juice with us, or water with us? Would it help if do you need some company starting something? Be a good friend. A good friend and a good parent doesn't always do the easy answer and the easy thing.